is the MIAA Weekly.
Welcome to the MIAA Weekly. I am Witt, Matt Witwicky to some, joined with my guy John Dykstra. We are both wearing, no communication happened. We are both wearing the same garment. Explain to our audience a little bit, if you would, what shirt we're wearing there, buddy.
Yeah, this Brandon Meisner shirt that D2 football sold last year as a fundraiser for Brandon after he had his stroke. And of course, Brandon, the founder of D2football.com, and the reason this podcast exists right now. So much love to Brandon, and hopefully he keeps on feeling better and better.
Yeah. So, for those who aren't aware, our guy Brandon Meisner does kind of tune into these podcasts. He loves the fact that kind of like there's something new to watch each night. But what do you think he would have thought about the MIAA this last weekend? He's an MIAA guy. What would have been his reaction?
I wasn't sure if we were sticking or going straight to his Bearcats losing or the MIAA as a whole. I think he'd be a little disappointed, as I know most fans are, with kind of how week one went. The MIAA isn't used to losing those week one premier matchups, week zero, I guess I should say. But there were some tough matchups, and they went against some big teams that we will get to shortly. But that wasn't the way the MIAA drew up week zero. I guarantee that.
Well, after going 16-3 last year, if I remember correct, in non-conference games. Now, let's be honest, about half of them were against Northeast Oklahoma, who was a 2-win ball club. But at the same time,
let's be honest about something else too. They beat Ferris State. They beat Angelo State twice. They
did.
Davenport, a solid GLIAC team. They did have their big wins as well.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Now, I went on our message board, our forum, and for those who haven't been on there, feel free to go ahead and go on our website. We've got a place called board or forum that you can go to. And I could tell the MIAA fans were taking this in stride when I go and I look on our board and I see a topic at the top of the list. The MIAA is trash, and it's got 67 responses. So obviously this is not something that's alarming to anyone. But with that, we've got a little bit of the panic meter that we are bringing on. Now we've got a few weeks here, John, of non-con. There's a handful of non-con games here for the MIAA to kind of get right, or to, kind of reverse some of that course. It's not like all the games in non-con have been played here. You meant go ahead and kind of lay it all out. We've played essentially half so far after 1 week.
We have played exactly half. All 10 teams have played one game. They all have 2 games. So I know, a lot of teams will be playing another one this week. Some are a little bit later in the season, but they're all coming up pretty quickly here. So the next 2 weeks, I believe, will knock them all out. So we're getting there. But I think in terms of that panic meter, though, we knew some of this already, or at least those that are kind of tuned in nationally did.
There was some ambitious matchups, no doubt about it.
I think we knew that the MIAA maybe didn't have an elite team this year. It's not years past where Pitt State or Northwest or somebody's really vying for a national title. Maybe that changes by the end of the year and one of these teams figures it out, gets hot like Ferris did last year. But I think going into the season, we kind of knew that the very top might be tough. Now, why the MIAA is the league that it is because of the depth. And the depth still showed up this week, I think. It's just, as we're going to get into, the top half of the league did not show up very well.
Well, far be it from us to ever call out your ratings. But
I think they were pretty consensus. But, yeah.
So, yeah, but we go by yours,
Yeah.
So here's the bigger problem, I think, is that you have 6 defeats, 4 wins here, but the top 5 teams right there lost by an average of almost 20 points.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is probably the more alarming part, not the winning or losing it. And maybe I'm way off, but there was some. I know most of those games were, other than Central Bowl, were not close really.
No.
So that's, I think, probably the thing that people are looking at, going, "Wow," because I was getting messages from plenty of non-MIAA coaches saying, "Wow, what's going on in the MIAA?"
I
And
mean, Central Oklahoma is the one you really look at as, hey, that was a big upset coming in. Pitt State played the number 1 team in the country. Fort Hays State played the number 1 team in the Lone Star Conference. One they beat last year, so they would have liked to beat them again.
they lost by 20.
Absolutely. But that's nationally, that Angelo was the higher ranked team. Northwest obviously played the number 1 team in the Northern Sun and a top 5 team in the nation by our poll. So I just don't know if there was too much shocking. Mo West, I thought, punched above their weight in their game that they lost.
I don't recall. I could swear though that in our chat for Inside E2 Football, you said Hayes by 20.
The Hayes one.
Did you mean Hayes to get beat by 20? Is that where
the
you're
Hayes
going?
one surprised me. Everybody knows that, but I'm saying nationally, they were probably considered the underdog. They weren't considered the underdog for me, and we will get into Hayes later on.
Well, but you know what? I think you're bringing up an interesting point. Is some of the reason that the MIAA gets looked at as the best conference overall in D2 isn't probably because of the high end, if I'm going to be real honest. Though ever since COVID, the MIAA has struggled to have somebody who'd be a regular top 5 team.
Yeah.
Now, that said, when you take a look at the bottom 5 on the right-hand side, that bottom 5 would probably have their way with any bottom 5 in any other conference in D2. So that speaks to the depth here. But let's be really frank here, John. The Missouri Southerns and Washburns aren't grabbing the headlines with their results because they're not in the top 25.
Oh, believe me, I'm not saying it wasn't a bad week for the MIAA. I'm saying it was a more predictable week than I think a lot of MIAA people would want to say. When you schedule that tough, sometimes you're going to get bit, and they got bit in a big way with their top contenders.
Well, let's you and I go ahead and start looking through some of the games. I'm going to go ahead and, first of all, you and I ended up being at the same game in Maryville, where everybody who watches the show knew that we were going to be. We'll go through a few pictures that we've got. There's the radio crew with you as well, John. There.
SID Colin McDonough, friend of the show, in the middle there.
There, yes, he probably had no idea that he was going to end up being on the show tonight, but he's on the show tonight.
There he is.
Then, as we go ahead and we look through, you and I pregame, we had a chance to interview the head coaches and go ahead and see how they felt before the game. So we've got Coach Mack and Coach Hoffner right here. And what was funny is right when we were getting ready to interview Coach Mack, Coach Hoffner comes walking on up completely, out of the blue. So, those guys knew each other, of course, in the past in the NSIC. Then as we kind of move forward with the game itself, the weather was perfect as we were just about getting started. And then a rain starts to happen. And then we had one of the officials go down and was kind of really swivvy on the legs and ended up kind of being let down after being held up. And I talked to Justin Engels, the head of the Northern Sun officials, and he was there that night. You got a chance to meet him. And I saw him at Augustana because he was following me around all weekend. And he ended up staying at the hospital with this guy, the official here, and spent the night, and then ended up he had a heart situation. He's going to be fine. He was released the next day, but fairly serious thing. We're just glad that he's out of the hospital now, because it was, for all involved and anybody who was watching, it was a pretty serious moment.
Yeah, that was scary, and it's weird weather day like that. It was so hot in the beginning, and then we got that cold rain, and it was just a weird day out there in terms of how everyone was feeling.
So then, speaking of the weird weather day, here is a shot from what were we, end of the first quarter, somewhere in that neighborhood. And you can see, if you look closely, that there's a guy with a gray shirt that is completely soaked through his shirt, the rain. You can see the rainbow on the side. I just snapped a quick, photo with my camera with my phone as it was getting soaked. We got one of the Northwest folks underneath the bleachers
I was
there,
going to say,
trying getting out of the rain. I mean,
smaller folks than you and I scrambled underneath there, but we just dealt with it.
That's my tan bag, or that kind of almost army green color on the left, right near him. And he moved it down there with himself, kind of moving it out of harm's way. And I almost was thinking, how am I going to get to that? But I was able to, I'm pretty flexible, John. I was able to get down there. But we got soaked, John, and you and I looked at each other right in the midst of this, and we were thinking, this is not how this was supposed to be, because it was such, it was picturesque, 78 degrees,
wasn't the forecast
sunny
at all.
Right. But
it wasn't that first one that really, that first one was surprising and not super fun, but then it died off and it seemed like we were good. And then we got hit with another just as heavy downpour. And it was like, what is happening here today? All in the first half.
And the sun was shining the whole time. Crazy deal. So, well, let's go ahead. We get to the contest here. John, I thought there was a bit of a feeling out process in the first quarter. Then from there, I thought that Mankato, when they got up 2 scores, it felt like the mood started to change a little bit. Like, okay, this could become a little bit one-sided. And then we had a 21-0 score at half, and wide receiver Trayshawn Watson, I thought, was the difference in the first half. He looked like Jerry Rice or something. They couldn't stop him, and he was making one big play after another down the field.
Yeah, when I wrote about it, that was the turning point of the game that I wrote about. They had a 3rd and long.
Yep.
And he made a nice catch over the middle, and both defenses had stopped each other. Northwest, honestly, to that point, had more going offensively than Mankato did. But he made that catch, and then he made a deep ball catch on the same drive, and they punched it in. And then the two teams traded blows a little bit, but right before half, Mankato got going again, and then it snowballed from there. There were 4 straight touchdowns, and the game was over at that point. But early on, it looked like through about a quarter and a half, it was a pretty evenly matched game, and then it got bad quick if you're a Bearcat fan.
I thought that Mitchell Thompson, the quarterback for Mankato, I thought that he made people think that, boy, this looks a whole lot like Mr. Eckern, who hurt us a year previous. They weren't necessarily doing the exact, power off the left side, but he's a pretty bouncy, bigger athlete. And I thought he was kind of a handful for them at times.
Absolutely. 99 yards, 14 carries, 7 yards a carry for him. And then in the second half, when they went to their other quarterback, he only had 3 carries, but 21 yards. So 7 yards a carry for him. Right. Northwest did a good job against Backer for the most part. He had under 3 yards a carry in the first half. Got going more in the second half when the game really kind of got out of hand a little bit. But they were doing okay, except against the QB run and trying to shut down Mr. Watson, who was, like you said, really good in that game.
I think a lot of the Northwest fans, there's just some takeaways here. Got to be better on defense. Going to have something more to offer offensively. There were times where they were starting a drive. then they would shoot themselves in the foot with a penalty. Then they had to pick, I think, right before half, and that hurt. And I want to say that Mankato scored on the next play. It was one of those kind of deals. Zachariah Owens, much more the athletic quarterback. You can see him top right in the image there, number 10, and Chris Runkey. Owens was far more effective. Now that doesn't mean he's just flat out better or going to be more effective against everyone else. But when we take a look here, we had in the comments this question came on up, and
it's not a unique question.
Yeah, so it's something that how do you see this going forward? Because I don't think it's something clear cut. But what do you think the plan might look like?
Well, let's go over the plan from the Mankato game. The idea was 3 series for Runkey, then 1 for Owens. It was going to be a timeshare. And then Owens got going a little bit, number 10 as Mr. Benson alludes to there. But
he got loose a little bit, and
he got going, and he played the whole second half. So they weren't afraid to make the flip mid-game there. I don't know what we're going to see this week. We have press availability with Coach McMenamin and players tomorrow. He knows that's going to be asked, and it will be asked what the plan is at quarterback. I know Runkey had a really good camp, Chris Runkey, the starter. I know they were high on him. I would doubt it's a complete just go with number 10. It's that cut and dry. But they were going to share snaps anyway, so I'll be curious what the divide is now. But I would anticipate both of them seeing time because Zachariah Owens really did show a lot in that game against Mankato, a good defense. So it'll be curious what he can do moving forward, or be interesting what he can do moving forward with more chances and a chance to show off his speed. I've been told multiple times by multiple people he's the fastest guy in the team. Four speed guy, high 4.3 speed guy. And I mean, you can see it when he takes off. He is quick. So it's just the passing offense. You want to make sure that's still good, but he looked good at that against Mankato. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward what that divide is. And I do think both guys will probably see time against Washburn.
Yeah, 10 of 12 for 160 yards, throwing the ball on his side. As a person who is
45 yards rushing as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a person who's nowhere near this program like myself directly.
Yeah.
I would have a temptation to want to see him play a little bit more and give him some more snaps right from the jump. And the reason I say that is I just think he makes more plays. I think that's real. I mean, and the fact that you get something in the +1 run game only makes that an easier decision for me. But at the same time, I don't think that Coach McMenamin is going to be looking to make a knee-jerk reaction to this.
That's my thought.
And so I would imagine you're going to see a little bit of both. And we'll talk more about their next game upcoming. But
I get told on the sideline too by a couple players, this is the most accurate we've ever seen Z. And somebody pointed out, well, maybe he's just a gamer and that's what happens. But if that's the most accurate they've ever seen him, that's probably also the most accurate the coaches have ever seen him. So he's going to want to put multiple days together like that, in my opinion.
Well, and let's be frank, he was in a time where more so when the game was a little bit out of hand. And
but his first drive, maybe not as much, but yes, as the game went on. I think his first drive was 7-0, but
right. Yeah, I mean, most of his production though was second half. While Mankato had gotten it to the point where I'm not going to say it was garbage time, but it wasn't far from it either. So, well, moving into the games that you and I were not at, we had a big one here with Central Oklahoma going down to UT Permian Basin. I turned late on this game and went with Permian Basin, John, because I I just had a concern that Central Oak might have a little bit of the Central Missouri thing from last year, where all of a sudden we go from being the hunter to the hunted, and right from the jump. And I felt that UTPB's defense was maybe better than what they were getting credit for, and they played very well defensively in this contest. And we go ahead and we take a look at the fact that they were getting to the quarterback. They had I think 3 sacks on Jet Huff. He threw 2 picks. They fumbled twice. And the other thing is Central Oak had, I think, 11 penalties. Permian Basin had 1. So, they had about 100 yards and lost, right there in penalties, not to mention some of the other challenges they were having offensively. It felt like Permian Basin just played a lot cleaner game here. And at the same time, Cannon Gibson was efficient enough as a thrower for Permian Basin, also ran for another 78 yards. And, they hit a few shots over the top. And kind of put, Central Oak in a bad spot here, John. Does it make you kind of question, where does Central Oak go from here?
I mean, when we look at this game, though, we have a comment from Doug Williams that Cottrell was kind of held in check with only 50 yards. Well, he only had 8 carries. It's well over 5 yards a carry. And if you look at William Mason, he had 9 carries for 107 yards. The run game was working for UCLA.
Well, one of them was 70-yard touch.
Yes, so. a long carry, but I mean that counts. They ran the ball in this game. It really comes back to Jet Huff, who I think was kind of unanimously considered the best quarterback in the MIAA going into the season. And 14 of 34 for whatever it was, 169 yards and a couple picks. That's not going to cut it from your guy at quarterback there, and he just has to be better. I mean, he doesn't have Terrell Davis anymore, and that's a big deal, not having the best receiver in the country. But that's going to happen at D2. You lose guys. They returned enough that it shouldn't have been a 14-point game like this. And I think they have to really kind of figure some stuff out offensively. You mentioned the penalties and then the 2 picks. They also fumbled twice. They recovered them both, but it was sloppy for UCL. They ended up out yardaging UTPB despite the 20-point deficit, which a lot of that is, the game was in hand for UTPB the whole time. So it's there for Central Oak. They just gotta be better and more crisp as the season goes on. And I kind of questioned last year, they played Langston in week 0 and kind of got into the flow of things. And maybe that was a good idea if this is the week 0 effort that you're going to put out against a good UTPB team.
I was waiting for them to have kind of a JUCO or somebody really step up at wide receiver to be a splash player for them. I want to say their top guy caught 3 balls. They're going to need to just be a whole lot more productive in the pass game if they're not going to look to run the ball that way. So confusing outcome for sure. And not going to get any easier. They got Pitt next, so. Yeah. We'll have to kind of see where you and I land on that one. But
stay tuned.
Yeah, speaking of Pitt, we thought that this was a really tough game for any team going into Ferris like this. They're playing, at home, the whole deal. Ferris gets up 20-0 or 20-3, I should say, right before half, and Pitt goes ahead, scores a touchdown on a long pass. Wasn't really something we saw a lot of last year, which was encouraging.
No.
And I thought Jackson Berry, despite the fact 18 of 41, he had some production and they were able to get some yards that way. But in the second half, they, Pitt got themselves to where they were at within 10. And then all of a sudden, Ferris just kind of pulled away, and Wyatt Bauer, kind of the new quarterback they have, looks like he's going to be a handful for anybody. But they lose by 17 here, John. I got to be real frank. I I don't think that was terrible. I really almost think, you know what, as long as if they can hang around in this game, how many other teams are hanging around with Ferris State like this? So I think I'm not real concerned about Pitt if I'm a fan of the Gorillas.
That's where I'm kind of at. I mean, it looked different. 41 passes. It's been a while since Pitt's done that against anybody. Below 50% completion percentage isn't ideal, but almost 300 yards. Jackson Berry, who we talked about a little bit or mentioned him in the preview, but it's worth getting into. He's a Southern Utah transfer from D1 FCS. Actually played at Southern Utah. He's not one of the D1
Right.
bounce back that just didn't see any time. So he came in, played pretty well. Another situation where Pitt outgained Ferris State. I mean, that doesn't really mean too much because, like you said, with 6 minutes left in the second quarter, it was 20-3. So
Right.
Ferris was able to kind of do what they wanted there, and the game was never really in doubt. But I think that offensive production is interesting because we know not many teams are going to be able to put up 34 points on Pitt State's defense this year. I think overall maybe more positives than anything out of this game, even though Pitt State fan base isn't one for moral victories. So I understand that's
I found it being
awful.
oddly conflicting for me that I thought you lost like this, but you know what? You didn't get hammered,
No.
and a lot of teams did.
And we've got Jordan Rogers on the bottom there. I wrote a column before the season, my picks for kind of the major awards in the MIAA, since some conferences do that and the MIAA doesn't do
Right.
preseason ones of those. And I had Rogers as the defensive player of the year because he is a turnover machine, and he got a pick in the first game here and looks good. I'm not too worried about Pittsburg State. If I was worried at all, it's still the same worries from preseason. They did nothing in this game to make me more concerned with their outlook than I already was.
Okay. We're gonna go ahead. Those games we had talked about on Inside D2 Football last night a little bit. So if you want to see a little bit more about either one of those two, they were on that national show that we do on Sunday evenings, Inside D2 Football. But we move on now to some of the other games. We have UCM going down to Delta State. Delta State ends up getting up a fair amount in this game. UCM ends up having to play a little bit of chase, and UCM was not as effective in the passing game, meaning explosive, as they were in recent years. That's some of what I took from this, and at the same time, Delta's a pretty solid club. I don't think this is a quote unquote bad loss. How do you take it, John?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Gulf South team. Delta's been in the playoffs fairly regularly, fairly recently. It's not a bad loss on the road for UCM. I thought they would win this game, but I also have been very clear about I thought we were going to learn a lot about UCM in this game, and we did, both positive and negative. New quarterback, Donovan O'Mallow, I'm going to go with Donnie O out there. He was 30 of 45 for 251 yards. No, that's not Zach Zabrowski numbers, but we didn't expect it to be Zach Zabrowski numbers.
Sure.
The interesting thing that I'm curious to discuss with you a little bit is the running back usage. 17 carries for Tank Young, who was second team all conference last year at Northwest.
Yep.
7 carries for Boyd, and I had the feeling preseason that you thought he might be a little bit more utilized than what he was. He wasn't tremendously utilized in the pass game either. A couple catches.
I thought that I don't think that he's a 15 carry guy.
Yeah.
He is much more, in my opinion, a threat as a pass catcher.
Gotcha.
And then he is a conventional, running game, back. I don't see him that way in terms of effectiveness. I saw a lot of instances when he was in the Northern Sun that made me think that. So I'm a little surprised that they didn't get him the ball a little bit more in the passing game. He's the kind of guy who has that explosiveness. So, but they're feeling it out in their first game with plenty of new parts offensively, including quarterback. So I don't think it was a real bad showing. And I thought that they defensively hung around. I mean, this is Rich Wright's first game with them as well. And, they gave up 420 yards offense, but it's not like Delta blew their doors off or something.
No, and that was the other interesting note for me. Kind of like Northwest, like Pitt, running quarterback hurt him. Cole Kirk had 95 yards rushing. Yep. The rest of the team had 44 yards rushing. So they did a good job on the running backs, but they struggled against the running quarterback, which is a theme of week 0 so far, kind of across D2. And I'll address a comment too from our guy James, who has been missing in action for a while, but is apparently back. UCM has regressed since 2023. No kidding. They were the second best team in the country in 2023 and missed the playoffs last year.
It's a fairly high standard. But
that's not that's an obvious statement right there. So thanks for tuning in though, James. I just like to kind of have some fun with you once in a while here. So yes, they have regressed since they were probably the second best team in the country behind Harding that year. So yeah. Anyway, they did have a nice performance, I thought, from the wide receiver. Hogan Wasson, I believe, is his name. And he had 11 catches for 121 yards. So a nice game from them as they're kind of finding those new names, throwing and catching the ball this year.
Yeah, so I think Lambeau and company will be just fine. I think this is a great game for them to learn from against a good opponent. So, this doesn't hurt you in the conference race or any of that kind of stuff. And, at the same time, keep in mind the winner of the MIAA automatically gets into the dance. So, I mean, that's got a different level of importance now, especially when a lot of the top 5 teams all lost. It only is going to hurt you so much because if you win the conference yet, you're still in.
That's my overall view on the conference as a whole. I was going to get to it later, but now is a good time. I don't think it changes anything. I think 2 teams were always going to get in. It might be 2 lower seeds than they were before, but I don't think the MIAA is in one big league. So I don't think anything's really changed that much in that regard. If you win the MIAA, like you said, you're definitely in. And I think if you're a top 2 team in the league, you're going to be in as well. So I don't think it changes that much in the early going here.
Strength of schedule is we'll see. But let's go ahead and move to our next game, Nebraska Kearney. And they win at Wayne State. Very good game. I think we all kind of figured that this game was going to be a real tussle. And you take a look at this, it was a tight game all the way through. And then at the very end, Isaiah Harris, who had a monster game, he takes a big run and ends up kind of winning the day for him. And I think Isaiah Harris, I think he may be kind of the low key, might be as good as any back in this conference. I said it a few weeks back, and he proved me right with going for 165 against a Wayne State defense that's not bad either.
I don't think there's any doubt he's in that conversation and probably leading at this point. 21 carries, 165, and a touchdown. Really good day for him. The other guys are Jalen Cottrell. We just talked about low usage for him. And then Brandon Hall, who we'll get to later with Missouri Western, had some lower usage too. So, no, I think Harris is their workhorse there, and he had a great game. I want to give a shout-out to Abraham Schloting, I believe is how you say his last name. He started a game last year, was probably in line maybe to be the starter, and then they brought in another quarterback, and he wasn't the starter to begin the year, obviously. But that other quarterback got hurt, and he comes in, and all he does is run for 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and win this game for them. I don't know if we point that out enough about guys that stick with it, even if maybe things aren't going their way in terms of, I'm sure he wanted to be the starter, and it doesn't work out for him, but he gets a big moment here in week 1 and gets to run in the game-winning touchdown. So be interesting to monitor their quarterback situation too, and if the starter comes back, but from injury. But it's a good moment for a kid that stuck with it.
I watched a good portion of this game. That must have been Friday. The last 4 or 5 days are kind of a blur with all the football. I was impressed with how Kearney's front was getting after Wayne State. And I immediately thought, you know what, they may be one of the more physical teams in this league. And
on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that might be a sleeper team here, John. We'll have to see.
I was higher on Kearney than you going into it, so I'm happy to welcome you aboard there. Like I said, run defense only 56 yards for Wayne on the ground, so good job by Kearney. Kearney there controlling both lines.
Yeah. Moving ahead to our next game, one that I fell flat on my face.
Emporia people will let you know it.
And you know what? I have no problem if they do. I thought, Minot State was going to come on down there with the triple option, and I thought that they were going to do some good things. I thought that they'd be very physical, and I thought that they would win the day. Well, I'm at our game, and I got a message that they were down 20-0 or whatever it was, and I thought, this is I took a big swing on an upset and completely whiffed.
Well, you and the comment section, because I was hearing that they run the option better than Harding. I don't think that came to fruition.
I have noticed our comments is not flooded
with Minot people
with that situation any longer, at least right now, not right now. So tell us a little bit though. Let's make this more about Emporia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only do they only give up 7 against the triple, which is never fun to prepare for. No. But tell us a little bit about kind of where they went on the other side of the ball.
Well, yeah, that's the highlight with Coach Higgins. We said it in the preseason. He always has a good offense. You don't know quite who the pieces are going to be, but they find a way. And Ben Harris, the new starting quarterback there, had himself a good day. 37 of 52 for 292 yards, couple touchdowns, 1 pick. Good day in his first start there, and was interesting because we talked a lot preseason. Well, they have Trendon Collins back, but what else do they have back?
Right.
Trendon Collins was their 6th leading receiver in this game. They broke in some different guys. A guy, Malik Addis. I have no idea if that's how I'm saying your last name right, but
I know that's how you're saying it. Yes.
He had 20 catches all last season and had 12 in this game.
I saw that.
That's pretty welcome to D2, I guess. And then Diego Cerns, who's a guy who's been on the team a while, he was their leading rusher. Just Emporia State, I'm not going to doubt Garen Higgins can score the football, find some ways to get it done. Really, really good showing for them, and a team I personally had a lot of questions about coming into the year, and they answered quite a few.
And they limited Minot to 229 yards of complete, offense in that game. Yeah. And, they kept them under 4 yards per tote. And, you know what? I think it was very easy for people preseason to kind of sleep a little bit on Emporia. They've given some of the turnover that they had, some of the names that are not in the huddle anymore. So I thought this was a really quality win for them right out of the chute.
Absolutely.
So Angelo State, Fort Hays State. Boy, I think we all thought this was going to be a really tight game one way or the other. And you know what? Angelo gets a big payback here, and they were getting after Fort Hays State. Fort Hays State was struggling to get a lot going offensively. And at the same time, Angelo hit a few shots over the top, which we're not really accustomed to with Angelo. And boy, I tell you, it makes me feel like I think this tells me maybe more about Angelo than it does about Fort Hays. More like maybe Angelo is a top 10 team nationally. Which at that point, I'm not sure if I'm too concerned about the Fort Hays result, but you know what? The fact that you only score 7, John, that's got to be a concern.
Well, between this and Permian Basin, it was a good week for the Lone Star. This isn't LSC week or LSC weekly, but it was they had some good results. As far as Hayes, it was, I mean, Angelo just outplayed them, and that was the opposite of last year. They really stuck it to them, and you had to eat crow for Minot. I got to eat crow for this one. I did not see this game going that way. I think it's interesting. We talked about running back usage for UCM. The two guys I thought were going to be the main ball carriers for Hayes this year, Kent State transfer Curtis Douglas, and then 2 years ago starting running back Travis Dixon, neither of which played in this game. So I don't have any insight on if that's just they got beat out for carries or if they're some kind of injury situation or something there, but neither of them played in this game. And man, the offense showed it, only putting up 7 points. Heavner was good, not great, obviously, with only 7 points, but they just couldn't get a run game going. Fumbled it 3 times, had an interception, just sloppy. A lot of the same stuff that happened with Central Oak in their game.
Sure. Well, this was a game that I was at in Sioux Falls, where I live. Augustana, ranked team, hosting Mo West. And we had talked about this a week ago. We both thought that this could be a competitive game. Maybe I thought that a little bit more than you did. But
I thought it would be competitive.
This was a game that they could have won.
Yeah.
They had plenty of chances to win this. Now, since I was at this personally, I did get a few videos that I posted on Twitter during the game. By the way, if you don't follow us on Twitter, I am Witt D2 Football and on Twitter, and John is on Twitter. John, you remember what your handle is off the top of your head?
Yeah, my personal one is John_Dykstra, same as my name. But Sports MDF is the newspaper one. That's where you get most of the Northwest MIAA content.
And I'm mentioning the Twitter piece because of the fact that on game day, you're much more likely to see current stuff from us. Myself especially. If I'm at a game, I'm going to tweet out some things. So I'm actually going to go ahead and play a little bit of what I got for video here, John. Early on, Mo West gets on out ahead and scores first on a deep shot on a really nice looking day at Augie. It started turning. Of course, it did rain later, but Augie hits a corner route here, and what ended up being a very back and forth football game. You're going to see another shot in the corner here, and all of a sudden, the Augie faithful were thinking that we're this is a much tougher contest than what we're in for. Goal line stand, 4th down. Mo West gets a stop right in front of me there. This was key. Mo West trying to secure the victory, and a shot downfield. Isaiah Huber catches another ball. He had, I want to say, 200 yards receiving. He was the difference in the football game. And we're 10 seconds left in the contest. Augie needs a touchdown. They get a touchdown to win it, and a real heartbreaker for the Griffins at that point. And I think it's indicative of the team that they can be, John. But they've had some almost games.
I was going to say they are a team that has become accustomed to the heartbreaker the last couple years. And 2 years ago, when they nearly made the playoffs, it was the opposite. They were winning close games, and they've just been snake bit these last 2 years. Really, a year and a game now. But that's a tough one to open at when they played as well as they did. Augie showed a lot, obviously. Hubner, who is in the got a shout out in the comments before we got to him, but 14 catches for 207 yards. That's have a day.
Well, he's never been their go-to guy, John. They had Epperson, the running back, who was their home run hitter last year, and they had a collection of wideouts. Well, for a good portion of the football game, if I'm going to be really frank, Augustana looked like a young team playing their first game. And I think I even mentioned that to you. And, you hit me up a few times for kind of like where are we at with this, because it ended up being pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think once about the fourth quarter hit, Coach OJ and company said, you know what, we need to start going to the guy that we know we can count on to make plays. And Isaiah Huber came through big time.
And it's not like Mo West doesn't have – I mean, Desmond Green's one of the top corners out there. He only had 3 tackles in this game. I don't know how much he was matched up with him, but we thought pass defense would be one of the strengths for Mo West, and they had a lot of good things in this game, but pass defense is a little bit of a concern coming out of it.
Yeah. But I'd like to think if you're Mo West, you walk out of this saying, you know what, if we can play with a team ranked in the top 15, top 20 like that and know we can win a game like that, then you know what, right now in the current state of the MIAA, is there anybody that we can't compete with and kind of go blow for blow like that? And I think the answer is they should be able to compete. This is why I had them as high as 6th on my poll. Now they still have to prove me right here, but I was impressed with the effort.
No, they played well, and I think you can say that about probably 8 teams in the MIAA, that there's no losses you chalk up right away, because it is a wild kind of group there in the MIAA that could all beat up each other and might be where we're headed. I do want to shout out Kane Donovan. Neither of us really thought he would be the starting quarterback coming into it, and he played well. 15 of 27, 226 yards, couple TDs, an interception. Played pretty well in this game, and as we're learning things in these early weeks, one of the things I saw from Mo West is that running back split again, where they had Fountain with 14 carries, Brandon Hall, who we were both big fans of, with 10 carries, and then Dunn with 8. So they really divided up the running back usage.
Hall did leave the field one time, limping off, and I thought, where's Dykstra when I need him? Because
I had heard that. I listened to my guy Tommy Rezach on the way back from covering high school sports, and had heard that at one point. Fountain had his carries last year. He's an experienced back, but I think Brandon Hall just gives him another element there.
No question. Moving on ahead, Missouri Southern going ahead against Midwestern State. John, what were your thoughts about this game? I know that's your head coach. We don't even need to go in all that, but what can you tell us about this game?
No, well, we talked about it when we were previewing it. They were not shy about saying that they felt like they were the better team last year, and they let that game get away. They didn't let this one get away. They came out and took care of business with a little revenge in Joplin. So many questions about Missouri Southern and who would be where coming into this one, but Tillman Martin got the start at quarterback, 17 for 22. Not gaudy numbers, 164 yards and a touchdown, but gave them steady play at quarterback, and then they ran all over Midwestern State. 285 yards rushing. They had 4 running backs with at least 50 yards because Martin wasn't much of a runner for them. So it was all the running backs, their depth of running back, including a guy who started for them at times last year who wasn't even among that 4. He was injured for this game. So Nathan Glades being back with 93 yards is fun to see for him. Really good football player, has been injured. I just really liked what we saw from Missouri Southern. Midwestern State is not the top team on their schedule, and it will be we will have other tests down the road for the Lions, but this is a nice start to the season.
Yes. After having a really tough campaign a year ago, good to see them getting off with a win right away. So, and another team getting a win right away, the Ichabods. In a game where they were trailing a bit. John, tell us about it.
Yeah, they were down 10-0 to begin this thing, and then they had 20 straight points. Man, this game was wild. Negative 37 rushing for Washburn on the ground, and they won the game. You don't see that very often. Our guy James in the comments can't believe that's a stat with his Bison out there. Would never let that happen. But man, Justin Lewis, their new quarterback, transfer from Merrimack College, 33 of 43 for 352 yards and a couple touchdowns and no interceptions. Not a bad debut. Really looked good out there. Nice to see them getting multiple receivers going. He threw for 350 and didn't have anybody he spread it out well. DJ Bell, a guy who looked really good as a freshman, didn't do much last year for him, kind of battled injuries, 9 catches, 98 yards. So nice game from him being back. And then their leading receiver was a guy, Chase Allen Jackman. First of all, that's a great name. But he played in 9 games as a sophomore and didn't have a single catch. Yesterday, or not yesterday, but in this game, he had 9 catches for 127 yards and a couple touchdowns. So, man, Washburn's breaking in some new guys, but they look good out there, and impressive win over a team that should be right near the top of the Great Lakes Conference out there, or Great Lakes Valley.
Well, and one of our comments here has that this was the most impressive win. I think it was right up there with Kearney, if I'm going to be honest.
There's few to choose from, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year's Wayne State and recent Wayne is probably every bit as good as Truman. But I would agree that Truman had momentum coming into this year. There's no doubt about it. And Coach Zach Watkins scratches his first win, gets it right away. So, great to see there. This is why we mention, the depth of the conference, winning games like this against a team who is probably the second best team in the GOVC after Indy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Cards Fish comment is correct in that regard of so much of D2 is math. And this is going to look like the best win at the end of the year because Truman will win more games than anybody else the MIAA beat this weekend. I feel fairly confident in saying that.
Yeah. Well, that was our slate right there. We mentioned, 4 wins, 6 setbacks. Here is our new top 25. We released it about middle of the day today. I don't believe you're going to see the coaches poll out until tomorrow because everybody was off with Labor Day. We didn't take off. We just keep on, putting out content, which is why you and I are here right now. But we've got the new graphic, John, for our top 25. Are you going to give me a hard time about that? Or I'll have to go get our tech support and
it looks good. I'm just glad we're getting support in the comments from my favorite GLIAC person, Tony Nicolette, out there correcting some misinformation in the comments. So
since it was misinformation that had absolutely nothing to do with what we were covering on the show, I figured I was fine
with it, but I'm glad Tony's got her back. So.
Yes. Don't be afraid to have the comments area, guys, actually be related to what we're covering on the show. But
you just go crazy comments. I don't have any.
Live in the world of Captain Obvious. But
qualification.
So as we take a look here, MIAA, how many teams do we have left? Well, we got Pitt at 12. We've got UCO fell to number 17. Now, some people would say, why did UCO fall below Pitt? I think the thought is that Pitt looked a lot more respectable, whatever word you want to throw at it, with how they competed and stayed in that game with Ferris versus UCO loosened by 20 to a team that was not in the top 25. So and when we don't have much in the way of results that have come on in yet, and this is all you have to go by along with whatever reputation or thoughts we had coming into the year, then you're probably going to see a bigger move in a moment like this. And at the same time, UTPB moves ahead of them because the fact that UTPB 2 years ago was a playoff team. This last year, UTPB took UCM to overtime in a bowl game, and they become a fairly reliable product, I would say, over these last 3 seasons with what Coach McCullough has built.
Yeah, I'm never afraid to kind of throw my preseason poll out the window once we've seen these teams play, especially with the turnover. I have UCO and Pittsburg State at 12 and 13 currently for me. I have UCO ahead of Pittsburg State right now. And I have UTPB. I know we had a comment earlier about, are there 15 teams in the country that could beat them right now? I don't think so. I have them at 11 above those two MIAA teams because they obviously beat Central Oak. So
right.
I think the poll is pretty accurate. I don't have too many huge gripes, but I am a little higher on both UTPB and Central Oklahoma than the voting consensus as a whole.
I want to thank Lenny for joining us. He's been a guy who has been watching our show for years now, and always a guy who's in the comments, good contributor right there. We've got an interesting observation from James at Mankato's too high, which is an interesting take after they were up 30 points in that game at one point against Northwest. And I don't think I ran across anybody who thought that they were overrated at that point. But
I'll be honest, I don't have them at number 3. I have them at number 5, so I'm a little lower. But they handled that game.
Right, you saw them up close and see what
I think the top 5 is a little bit. I'll just tell you my top 5: Ferris, Harding, West Florida, Grand Valley, and Minnesota State. I think that top 5 for me is pretty. I feel pretty good about that right now, especially with the way West Florida was kind of the question mark and the way they played.
Florida had 3 based off one football game and not making the playoffs last year.
Yep.
But you did want UCO in the top spot last year very early. So we know how you roll, my friend.
I'm an overreaction guy. Yeah, but that's what I have. We know I'm never quite as high on some of the PSAC teams. Sorry, Chuck, but I don't have Kutztown that high in the top 10. Otherwise, that's the only glaring difference is I basically flip West Florida and Kutztown about where our national poll is. Otherwise, they are the exact same teams in the top 10.
Well, we had, and for those tuning in wondering, is anybody new to the mix here? Delta State moved up to 24. Central Washington's at 23 right there. And then UTPB at 16, who we mentioned a moment ago.
We don't have the Gulf South show either, but I think it's interesting. Talked about me being high on West Florida. All 4 teams in the Gulf South are in the poll. You only have a 4-team conference. It's easier to get 100% representation. But
yeah, I mean, it might be great for the last year of the conference. I mean, no, it's going to be hard for them to continue on like that, and we'll have to see how that all works. But
yeah, they're lower except for West Florida, but they are all in there.
Let's go ahead and move to our matchups that we have. week one, and yes, they are week one matchups because it was week 0 last week. Our first contest here, Thursday night game, Fort Hays going to Pueblo. Oh, it doesn't get any easier for Fort Hays. We talk about Pitt State's schedule. Fort Hays got a pretty good schedule too. So
yeah, because Pitt's coming up on theirs too. So this is a tough game. Like we said, Pueblo, top 10 team in the country for a reason. One of the best receivers in the country, Reggie Ratzlaff, back for another year. So that's a tough matchup. Going to altitude to play them for Hayes. I'm curious. You're the national guy. You know more Pueblo than I do, probably. You host the RMAC show last week. How do you see this one?
I think Pueblo has a lot coming back. I want to see if they can have a reliable enough running game, and we don't have enough of a sample size yet to really see that. The fact that they shut out South Dakota Mines was a little bit surprising to me because Pueblo was not lights out, I didn't feel like, defensively a year ago. I think that this is a real tough ask for Hayes to go to Pueblo after having a offensive performance that they are probably pretty unhappy with this last week. So I want to see if I think Hayes is a good enough team that this can be a dogfight. It's hard for me to envision that after what I just saw with their first game. I got to take Pueblo here. How do you see it, buddy?
Not so fast, my friend. Lee Corso tribute to this. No, this is my upset of the week. Clearly, it's an upset. Pueblo should be favored in this game with the way these teams performed last week, but I can't quit Hayes quite yet. My hype got a shot given to it last week with that performance, but I think they're too good of a team to do that 2 weeks in a row. I'm picking Hayes to go on the road in altitude and win this game somehow. Obviously, wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way, but I can't abandon the team that I was the highest on the preseason quite yet. So give me Hayes to pull the pretty decent size upset in this one with an unranked team beating a top 10 team on the road.
Okay. Well, and you and I are going to pick upsets like this. And you know what?
Yeah.
It's worth taking a swing on some of these. Now, when you think of these two teams, you wouldn't think that they're fairly geographically close, but they're only 5 hours drive.
Hayes is way out there, guys. It is.
So for those who, that illustrates how far Hayes is out, in the west side of the state. And because that 5 hours, I mean, heck, that's Kansas City to Sioux Falls for me. That's no big deal. So, well, let's go ahead and move on to our next game. We've got Northwest at Washburn. And, in years past, let's say in the last 10 years, most of the time this is, Northwest and that is what it is. Northwest now comes into this 0-1, Washburn's 1-0, brand new coach for both of them. How do you shape this one out?
It kind of hasn't been, though, in the last few years. Washburn has kind of been a house of horrors going to Topeka for Northwest. It's probably the road trip they've struggled the most with. It's been rough when they go out there. They've been upset a couple times, a couple nail biters.
And this is a 1 o'clock start, right, John?
It is. It's 1 o'clock start, so nothing too. I mean, that's kind of standard MIAA start time after we get through week one here, right.
Everybody else has a night game.
Yeah. Okay. I take that back then, but we're going to get into that being pretty standard. This is a conference game versus the other ones not being. But I agree with Lenny in the comments. Northwest needs a bounce back badly. Obviously, they do. I'll be curious. They've got a lot of questions to answer in this game, but I think they find a way to get the win in it. I don't know if it's going to be pretty, but I think they find a way. They do have injury concerns going into this game. Niall Stewart had a really scary situation in the first half there. We don't have an update on him yet. Carter Edwards had to be helped off the field multiple times. They're all MIAA linebacker. I think he'll be good to go for this week, but he's had a lingering kind of issue there. So we'll see how that goes. But I think the defense is healthy enough to get this win, even though I was impressed with Washburn last week. So give me Northwest, but I'm not super confident about it.
I want to see number 10.
Yep.
Get a few more chances this week, maybe even start the game. Make a few plays with his feet and his arm. I like Northwest winning this game, but I think that this is going to be a dogfight.
Yeah.
Next game up, Missouri Southern. Now, in this case here, when you take a look at all the games that we have, okay, and all the teams that we're going to be reviewing, when's the last time that you saw SBU on a slate for the MIAA? When's the last time you ran into that?
I have not in my time here, my 8 years or whatever it's been. It's been a while. Obviously, former league members down there.
Right. So Southwest Baptist, and as we take a look, the Bearcats 2-8 a year ago. Yeah, so 2-8 a season ago. They beat, I want to say it's like Oklahoma Panhandle and somebody else.
Yeah.
But do you think that this is a game where Southern gets out 2-0 here?
It should be. They should win this game. They should be the favorites. I'm glad this game is being played. I was listening on the radio to Mike McClure's call. Great radio voice for the Lions down there, and he talked about during the game about how this game needs to become an everyday thing, or every year thing. Bolivar to Joplin, fun game to go to if you're either side. Have a lot of fans from each side. So I'm excited that they are playing this game, similar to what we talked about with Kearney's in-state matchups. I think Missouri Southern is the better team, and I think they win this one fairly easily. But I enjoy that this game is happening, so just thought I'd want to get that out there.
Yeah, and SBU has not played a game yet, so this will be their first contest. I'm also taking Southern, like you mentioned right there. As we continue through, we've got a heck of a game down in Texas. Emporia State making a trip on down there to Angelo State. How do you see this one?
I think the Angelo State revenge tour continues. Emporia beat them last year by a score right after Hayes did, and I think Angelo gets this one and kind of delivers a blow to Emporia's fast start last week. I wouldn't be shocked if it went the other way, but I think Angelo, rightly so, is a pretty heavy favorite in this one.
I expect this one to be a barn burner.
Okay.
I just feel like Angelo knows a little bit more what they have coming back, and then at the same time, I was wildly impressed with them against Hayes. And now they're at home. And like you mentioned, this is a get-back game for them. They should be real up for this one. So I'd take Angelo as well.
The only matchup of 1-0 teams we got this week. So be interesting.
Yeah, and in defense of a week ago, I tell you that week 0 slate is going to be hard to live up to. We had so many interesting matchups. But let's take a look. We've got Chadron with an in-state contest, second in a row for Kearney here.
Yeah.
And this time Kearney's at home. Chadron played Northern Colorado this last weekend. I want to say it was like 20-3 or something like that, a setback for them against an FCS squad who's frankly kind of a low FCS, if we're going to be really honest. Chadron has been a decent defensive team who's been kind of offensively challenged recently. Sometimes you could say some of the same thing about Kearney, if we're going to be really honest.
You could.
Is this game a first team to 20 wins?
Depends how many yards Isaiah Harris goes for. I think this is Isaiah Harris game, like we said earlier, injury at quarterback, and more of a runner with the second guy if it is him. So I think Kearney's going to try to be the more physical, more powerful team, and I think they're going to be able to do that. I don't think it's a high-scoring game, but I think they're going to have a real hard time stopping Mr. Harris, and I think Kearney gets this win fairly comfortably, a couple scores.
I think they win like a 15-14 low-scoring special.
I'm down for it.
We'll have to see how that turns out, but I also have Kearney getting off to a start 2-0. Well, now we're to the main event. Both teams have a loss, so neither team has hit the pay window yet. But as we've got Pitt State and we've got Central Oklahoma, boy, I think this is a toss-up. It's how much can you take from week one? You take a look at what both these teams bring back from last season. Pitt went down there, if I'm not mistaken, went down there and ran the ball down UCO's throat last season in a game that was jolting to you, because I remember, John, you moved in all your chips, and UCO had a hard one with Pitt there, and they couldn't get off the field a little bit.
And then Pitt won the MIAA championship, and then UCO did.
Yes, but
my chips stashed.
But UCO, you remember the hype train slowed down there for a moment.
It took a brief tour. Okay.
So are you still on the UCO hype train, or how does this one go for you?
That I am. Nationally, I think Pitt will be considered the favorite, even though they're on the road in this, just because it was such a letdown last week for UCO. My guy James in the comments says he's taking Pitt, and I think that's going to be the consensus across the country. But I'm taking UCO in this game. I think at home, I think it was a little bit of a wake-up call for them last week. Not to say anything, Permian Basin's a good team. Like, you have to be good to have that wake-up call too. But I think UCO gets back on track this week and kind of quiets some of the noise. Like I said, they were still above Pitt for me in the rankings by one spot, but that's why, because I knew this game was this week, and I said, if I'm picking UCO to win that game, it doesn't make much sense that I have them above them in the rankings if I think UCO is better. So give me the Broncos with a close win, but a win over Pittsburg State.
I'm going to be interested to see if Central Oak can run the football and make a concerted effort to do so against Pitt, because UCO returns back plenty of that offensive line, and Pitt on that front seven is not as experienced as they are in the back half. So, and you know, there's one of our folks here, Wesley, asked, and he said Pitt unless Huff wakes up.
I'm assuming he's going to play better if I'm picking him.
Yeah, and you know, the challenge here is Huff had, you know, you look at this last game, and then you look towards the end of last season. You know, he was splitting a little bit of time after having a really big start to the year. It seems like, you know, he's a high ceiling, low floor quarterback at the moment. They're going to need for him to be closer to that ceiling than the floor of a week ago. I'm also taking UCO, but I don't feel real strongly about it, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Pitt won that game.
We had a comment from Armo there too, if you want to bring it up.
Yeah.
I think this is interesting because normally I would say not a chance because the MIAA is such a strong league. It's hard to do that in. This year, absolutely, there's a chance. If Pitt wins this game and loses next week, we will be on path to have that happen where Pitt has lost to two of the best teams in the country but could still very easily win the MIAA. So just thought I'd like to answer that one because it's a well thought out question there from Armo.
Yeah, and you know what? We have some folks who also listen to our show. I'm just gonna essentially this is Armo's asking, are we gonna have like an Angelo type of scenario like they had last year where they lost both non-cons but ran the table in the LSC. And you know, given some of the challenging games with a team like Pitt has had in non-con, it's absolutely within the realm of possibility.
Pitt and Hayes would be the two favorites to because they have such tough non-con games to maybe find a way to do that. But I would say Pitt's the obvious one.
Yeah. Now, as we go ahead and we kind of move away from the games you and I have picked, we're going to show this. You know, assuming we get all of the info that comes in your Maryville forum. John, tell our viewers who don't know anything about this yet, but will know about it going forward.
This is our weekly pick 'em, and I mean, you guys enjoy making fun of me and Witt picking games enough. We figured we'd give you 6 more guys to make fun of. I saw our guy, Coach McCullough, down at UTPB had it in the locker room for a little bit of motivation last week.
So Emporia State might be making copies right now.
Emporia State might be. There's a few teams on there that got the sweep this week. But as you can see in the standings on the far side there, we didn't do that well. So don't put too much stock in it. Me and my guy Liam down at the Topeka paper are leading with measly 6-4 records. So it's not the highest bar. Witt, I'm sure will tell us he's actually beating me in the podcast picks because he flipped a couple picks on us. But
well, yeah, I was going to say. So did I not get credit for UTPB even though I picked it before game time?
Well, we published this like 3 weeks before the season, so no, you didn't. You're like that guy in his bracket pool that has like 5 national champions and tries to claim them all because he did a whole bunch of brackets.
Well, picking games 3 weeks ahead of time, I don't want to talk about what that's all about, but yes, I understand you needed to for the paper, but that's a tough one. So
yeah, some of these I'm surprised by. I think Washburn has a better chance than 1 out of 8 of winning that. I think nationally, I'm surprised nobody else picked Emporia. I think Angelo is a pretty good favorite, but normally with our MIAA group, we get some MIAA love, so I'm a little surprised by that. But otherwise, and I thought Pitt would get more votes than UCO, but some people are with you and I that are still holding on to that Bronco stock at this point.
That's true. That's very true. Well, that's everything for our show tonight. John, do you have any? We're right about our sweet spot, right about an hour and 15. That's pretty much our normal.
10 games to go through. I can't say I'm not surprised that we went a little over an hour today, but
now, John, are you making the trip to Washburn?
I will be making the trip to Washburn. Love the Topeka trip. Other than St. Joe, it's the closest trip in the MIAA for me. So always enjoy my time. Mr. Gene Castle, their SID, everybody down there at Washburn, always a good time.
I will be having a fairly easygoing weekend here. Northern State comes to USF, so I'm going to get a chance to see 2 teams that I didn't get a chance to see.
Can't argue with that.
Both in state, and I'll be a 6 p.m. kick. That place ought to be humming. Northern State travels well, so it should be an interesting contest. So, well, Tony's going to give us a hard time about our coordinating outfits. Tony, we already talked about it earlier, so you're late on that one. But everyone, thank you very much for tuning on in once again, and we will see you again next week. Thank you.